Hey everybody, Jeremy Siskind here. I've got my two books, Playing Solo Jazz Piano and Jazz Piano Fundamentals, but you can also see them over there. And today I want to tell you about the Yodel Lick. The Yodel Lick is a lick that I've heard a lot of different musicians use, and not only is it a great and very useful lick and scale pattern to know, but it's a great way to practice your scales and make sure that you know your scales. You've probably heard me be annoying and talk a bunch before about how knowing your scales isn't enough. You have to anticipate all of the next notes in your scales. So this is a really nice way to practice that. So here we go. Step one for the Yodel lick is to practice your scale, and I'm just doing it on the C major scale to keep it nice and clear, in descending sixth. This can start or end anywhere you want, but I kind of like starting on the fifth, because that first sixth, if we're thinking about C major, it gets us the fifth and the third of the chord. So it's very kind of tonally pleasing. So okay. And I like alternating between 5 and 4 and 3 on those top notes of those 6. So I never like just going 1 5 1 5 1. I don't feel like I can be very accurate when I do that. So instead, I'm going 1 5 1 4, and that way only my thumb has to move. The top of my finger doesn't have to move. I could even then go 1 3 after that. If I want to go really crazy, I could use 2, but I won't really do that. Right? So whatever your major scale is, whether it's C major or E flat, get really nice, snug, and comfortable using descending sixth. Okay? This is the easy part. Step 2 is also not that hard. You're going to then repeat the lower note of your sixth. So in C, I'm going low, high, low, low, high, low, low, high, low. You're starting to maybe hear why we're calling it the Yodel lick, because yo, hey, yo, yo, hey. And again, if you want to notice my fingering, you can. I like to leave fingering up to each individual student, but I am crossing over my thumb to my second finger. Because why make life harder than it has to be? It's much harder, and it doesn't sound very good to do that. But the fingering at this point doesn't matter that much, because what we're going to be doing is adding in one more note leading in to each beat. And that note is going to be a chromatic lead-in. Okay, and this step takes a little bit of explanation. I'm going to grab my pen from over here. Most professional YouTube video ever. The award goes to me for leaving my pen on my desk. Okay, so whenever we have a whole step between notes of the scale, we're going to just add a little passing tone, a chromatic passing tone. Going, oh, you can't even see what I'm writing. Great. Right, that G flat passes between the G and the F. Wow, what a technology fail today. But when we have a half step in between two notes of the scale, like we do between the F and the E, between measure 1 and measure 2. Wait, I'm going to try it again. I don't know why you can't see anything. Now, instead, we're going to add a chromatic lead-in from beneath, a lower chromatic neighbor, because we don't have room to add an upper chromatic neighbor. We've already had that note. So it's going to be a little bit different depending on where you are in the scale, whether you have a whole step between two notes or a half step. And this is the real challenge of this lick. And so you have to know the scale really well to find where you have those two half steps between the third and the fourth notes in a major scale, and then between the seventh and the root in a major scale. So just to review, between G and F, I'm adding a passing tone. But between F and E, I'm adding a lower chromatic neighbor. And some of you who are really savvy notice that that creates an enclosure, a chromatic enclosure, F, D sharp, E. Passing, passing, and then lower chromatic neighbor, slash. Again, it's an enclosure. Now, you know, I've had a real big talk about varying your fingering each time. Here, I don't really vary my fingering each time. I go thumb, 5, thumb, 2, thumb, 5, thumb, 2, thumb, 5, thumb. Okay. And so, of course, this lick works in any key. It gets pretty tricky, though, to remember which note you're aiming for in some of these keys. And so as I get into some black keys, I do change my fingering a little bit. And this is me personally. You're not necessarily going to do the same thing. But let's look at these fingerings. I'm in the key of E flat major now. So if I'm going black, white, black here, like I would from B flat to A flat, I'd go 2, 1, 2. And then here, this is a bit of a reach. So some of you with smaller hands are going to be angry with me. I can deal. I can take the heat. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1. And here I'm going 2, 1, 2 because I'm ending up on a black E. And then here 3, 2, 1. 2, 1, 2. So when I'm aiming for a black key, I'm going 2, 1, 2. And if I'm enclosing black keys to get to a white, I'm going 3, 2, 1. You don't have to do exactly what I do, but if you find that helpful, then use it. All right, we're ready for step 4. I don't know if my iPad's ready for step 4. I'm going to have to change the view here. I actually want to be able to see everything. Actually, before we do that, that's why you couldn't see it before, because we were looking at step 3 and I was writing on step 3A. Live and learn. I'm glad that I've already circled step 3A because this is a little bit of a variation. And so the way that this works is that instead of doing an enclosure when we have half steps, and you'll look at the black circle now, I'm going to write in red. Instead of doing an enclosure, I went 1 half step above the note I'd just been on. So I'm going F, D, and then instead of doing F, D sharp, E, I'm going F, D, G flat, F, E. So that's a different way to do it. D flat, C, B. And that keeps things a little bit more consistent. You're always doing 2 half steps down, 2 half steps down, 2 half steps down. I don't think one's necessarily better than the other. They're just slightly different. Step 4, let's call it the inverted yodel, or I was joking with myself because I find myself so funny that we could call this the sick yodeler. So instead of yodeling up, we could have them yodel downwards. I don't like it quite as much, but it's a great thing to practice. Guys, what you're really learning when you practice this lick is that you're learning how to lead to, anticipate, and then sometimes enclose each and every note of the scale. So that's why this lick, to me, it's not just a lick that sounds pretty cool. It's actually really training you well. Step 5, I've created what I call a minor yodel, or we could call it the yodeling minor. I correct myself out. What can I say? And it would be... So here I'm enclosing or leading two notes of the melodic minor scale. So if you need a review, the melodic minor scale is just like the major scale, except it has a lowered third. So instead of E in C major, it's an E flat. And this gets interesting because it means that instead of having a half step between the third and fourth, now you've got a half step between the second and third. So your calculations are going to have to change a little bit too. So this is not limited to major scales. All right, I wasn't planning on doing this, but let's look at Take the A Train and let's see where we could use this chart. Oh, that was a failure. Take the A Train. No, I want to find it in the right key. There we go. All right, so here's a little lead sheet for Take the A Train. Let's get rid of the writing. Great. So in these first two bars, I could use my C Yodel lick, right? So as I'm starting my solo, okay, for those of you who are pretty advanced, you might know that as I get to that D7 flat 5, I'm going to use what we call the Lydian dominant scale. And I could yodel that scale too. I could yodel any damn scale I want because I'm Jeremy Siskind, damn it. If you're still watching, you are so patient. But then what's really interesting is that, since this next line, the second system of the piece, is a 2-5-1, we could just use the C yodel for that entire section, right? It's going to be a lot of yodeling. But the scale stays the same, right? Because we're in this C key center for that whole time. So instead of, we could go. And then we get to the bridge and we start on an F major 7. Guess what we could do? We could yodel the F major scale. And then we get to D7, we could yodel the D mixed Lydian if we want. And then we switch to C. Okay, so, this whole piece could be one big yodel. Let's see if I can do it, just for kicks. Yodel up and down, take the A train. Of course, that was totally obnoxious. I don't recommend that you use it like that, but it's pretty good practice to make sure that you're really solid on your scales. And if you get really good, you could do it in double time. I need some more practice before I can do that over my Lydian dominant scales. So that's my assignment. But your assignment is to practice that Yodel lick first in all 12 major keys, then start with the melodic minor and explore some different modes and possibilities. So I hope you enjoyed that. By the way, these are my two books, Jazz Piano Fundamentals and Playing Solo Jazz Piano. If you like this channel, the best way to support it is by buying as many copies of the books as you can afford. They make really great, they could be used as like pillars to build a house if you get like 50 to 75. Okay, I'm gonna shut up. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.